SpaceX CEO Elon Musk, in an email to his company's employees, asked them to work over the weekend on SpaceX's Raptor engine, as the company faces genuine risk of bankruptcy unless it speeds up the production. Musk, in an email to his employees, revealed that the company faces a genuine risk of bankruptcy if production does not increase to support a high flight rate of the company's new Starship rocket next year, reports The Verge. Musk's email to SpaceX employees provides more context to the significance of the departure of former Vice President of Propulsion Will Heltsley earlier this month. Heltsley had been taken off Raptor development before he left. CNBC reported, with Musk noting in his email that the company's leadership has been digging into the program's problems since then, and discovering the circumstances to be far more severe than Musk previously thought. Musk also revealed that instead of taking the weekend off as planned, he was going to be working on the Raptor all night and over the weekend. He then asked employees, without critical family matters, to work too, saying it was time for all hands on deck. The consequences for SpaceX, if we can't get enough reliable Raptors made, is that we can't fly Starship, which means that we can't fly Starlink Satellite V2. Falcon has neither the volume nor the mass to orbit needed for Satellite V2. Satellite V1 by itself is financially weak, whereas V2 is strong, Musk added. Starship is the massive next-generation rocket SpaceX is developing to launch cargo and people on missions to the Moon and Mars. The company is testing prototypes at a facility in southern Texas and has flown multiple short test flights. But to move to orbital launches, the rocket prototypes will need as many as 39 Raptor engines each, necessitating a sharp ramp in engine production. SpaceX did not immediately respond to CNBC's request for comment. Heltsley did not respond to CNBC requests for comment. The billionaire founder has repeatedly described production as the most difficult part of creating SpaceX's mammoth rocket. The company has steadily built up its Starship production and testing facility in Boca Chica, Texas, with multiple prototypes in work simultaneously. The company's next major step in developing Starship is launching to orbit. Musk on November 17th said SpaceX will hopefully launch the first orbital Starship flight in January or February, pending regulatory approval by the FAA, as well as technical readiness. SpaceX wants Starship to be fully reusable, with both the rocket and its booster capable of landing after a launch, and to be recovered for future flights. SpaceX's Falcon 9 rockets are partially reusable. The company can regularly land and relaunch the boosters, but not the upper portion or stage of the rocket. Musk said earlier this month that he wasn't sure if Starship would successfully reach orbit on the first try, but emphasized that he is confident that the rocket will get to space in 2022. He also noted at the time that Starship's development is at least 90% internally funded thus far, with the company not assuming any international collaboration or external funding. Starship crucial to Starlink's financial success. SpaceX was founded with the ultimate mission to colonize Mars. The founder of SpaceX, Elon Musk, believes it's important to preserve human consciousness. He has dedicated his time and wealth to developing the technology and spacecraft that could one day enable humanity to expand consciousness throughout the galaxy. Musk envisions a fleet of starships carrying tons of cargo and hundreds of passengers to build a permanent settlement called Mars Base Alpha. Helping to pay for this is why I'm accumulating assets on Earth, Musk said last year. Megatons per year to orbit are needed for life to become multiplanetary. Building 100 starships per year gets to 1,000 in 10 years, or 100 megatons per year, or maybe around 100,000 people per Earth-Mars orbital sync, he said. The reusable Starship launch vehicle is under development at the SpaceX South Texas launch facility, located at Boca Chica Beach, along the border with Mexico. Multiple prototypes of the spacecraft are set to undergo testing. The next Starship prototype will perform a high-altitude flight test soon. The development of the Starship launch vehicle comes with an expensive price tag. Musk says SpaceX's Starlink satellite broadband constellation is key to funding the Starship fleet development long-term. If SpaceX is successful in deploying the constellation of thousands of internet-beaming Starlink satellites and obtains a percentage of the telecommunications market, Musk says Starlink could generate 10 times more revenue than SpaceX's core business that launches payloads to orbit. The whole purpose of SpaceX is really to help make life multiplanetary, but the revenue potential of launching satellites to the space station, that taps out about $3 billion a year. But I think providing broadband is more like an order of magnitude more than that. Probably $30 billion a year, as a rough approximation, Musk said at the Satellite 2020 conference. If Starlink generates $30 billion in revenue annually, it could gradually finance SpaceX's ambitious Starship program long-term. For context, that would equate to approximately 25 million Starlink subscribers at $99 per month. Starlink broadband service customers will be supporting SpaceX's goal to make life multiplanetary. SpaceX has raised billions in funding over the past several years for both Starship and its satellite internet project Starlink, with the company's valuation recently hitting $100 billion. But while SpaceX has launched about 1,700 Starlink satellites to orbit so far, Musk said the first version of the satellite is financially weak. This company has been steadily growing Starlink's user base, with about 140,000 users paying for service at $99 a month. The Starlink constellation currently has approximately 1,325 satellites orbiting our planet, out of 12,000 that will comprise the network. The company has already started to provide beta internet service to specific regions where the satellites beam their signal. Northern United States, Canada, United Kingdom are among the first areas that have coverage. The satellites will connect Germany and New Zealand soon. Right now, SpaceX is mainly focused on connecting rural and remote areas where the internet is unreliable or unavailable. As more satellites are deployed, SpaceX will expand its coverage. Earlier this year, SpaceX outlined improvements for the second version of the satellite, with Musk saying in his email that V2 is strong, but can only be launched effectively by its Starship rockets. To date, SpaceX has launched Starlink satellites with its Falcon 9 rockets, but Musk outlined that those rockets do not have the mass or volume needed to effectively deploy the second-generation satellites. That means the success of the Raptor Engine program is also critical to the long-term financial stability of SpaceX's Starlink service, which Musk has talked about spinning off in an IPO. Notably, SpaceX is currently ramping up production of its Starlink antennas to several million units per year, Musk said in the email, but those will be useless otherwise if Raptor does not succeed. While blunt, Musk also has a tendency towards hyperbole. Still, with Starship so central to so many aspects of SpaceX's business, even if he's exaggerating the peril of the Raptor project, there's undoubtedly some degree of truth to it all. Building momentum ahead of the new year and increasing focus on Starship's feasibility certainly makes sense. Then, and we've seen Musk's "the sky is falling" approach pay dividends when it comes to coaxing a final surge of productivity out of Tesla employees to close out tight quarters. SpaceX is expected to become even more valuable than Tesla, according to Morgan Stanley. Despite news of Tesla's $1 trillion valuations, another of Elon Musk's businesses is expected to grow even larger in the coming years. SpaceX, which has made news recently with its Inspiration 4 and Crew 2 missions, is expected to become the long-term darling of investors. From our investor conversations, the sentiment on SpaceX has increased substantially along with the company's valuation in the private market. Morgan Stanley analyst Adam Jones wrote recently in a report, "The majority of our clients by survey and client discussions believe SpaceX could ultimately command a higher valuation and significance than even Tesla." While Tesla gained headlines for its valuation, SpaceX's value has also been increasing in the last 6 months. CNBC reported that its value has recently exceeded $100 billion, making it the second most valuable private company in the world. The $560 per share price, according to CNBC, is 33% higher than its February valuation, when it was closer to $420 per share. Besides its recent missions, SpaceX has several ongoing high-profile projects, including its Starship, which is a deep space transportation program for launching cargo and astronauts to missions to the Moon and Mars. The company recently completed a successful high-altitude flight of a Starship prototype. It is awaiting regulatory approval to undertake an orbital launch. Its Starlink satellite network for broadband service is also expected to be a growth engine for SpaceX. It has already launched 1,740 Starlink satellites to form a constellation of interconnected satellites, but that could expand to tens of thousands of satellites. SpaceX is viewed as the apex player in the commercial space industry, wrote Jonas. It has raised billions in the last 2 years to fund Starship and Starlink. Musk may become the world's first trillionaire because of SpaceX, said Morgan Stanley on a separate note. Now that you watched the video, let us know what you think by leaving a comment below. Thanks!